All right, everybody, welcome in. Happy Friday. Welcome to Action Island. We are presented by the FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm your host today, Brendan Glasheen, joined by Action Network analyst Tim Kalinowski, a jack of all trades at this company, Nick Giffen, a member of our predictive analytics crew at Action Network, and prop bet guy. We are getting you set for Week 17, a Monday Night Football special on Saturday night between the 11-4 Detroit Lions and the 10-5 Dallas Cowboys. Action Island is presented by FanDuel. Bet $5 on any money line play. Get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You know the drill at this stage. If you are new to the program, we'll work our way through the island, get everyone's thoughts on each of these guys' picks. They'll give out two apiece, and then we go to a council vote to decide which bet we want to add to our Action Island parlay. Tim Kalinowski, you went first when I was with you last Friday, and it went swimmingly with Mr. Gerald Everett of the Los Angeles Chargers. Why don't you get us started for this game, Detroit and Dallas?
Yeah, bat and lead off here, Glash, once again, and I'll start by saying that I am severely outclassed when it comes to handicapping with the other two guys to my right. I feel, I'm a little nervous here. I'm kind of shaking in my boots. And though I'm a solid NFL bettor, these guys are pretty damn good, especially when it comes to props. So with that said, before you call me square for giving you the Cowboys team total over 28.5 points, let me just tell you, it's not just because the Cowboys have scored 30 plus in every home game this year that they, turn into a totally different team when they're playing at home versus the road. This Lions defense is absolutely dreadful, 27th in coverage grade per PFF. Dallas throws the ball almost more than anyone else in the league, and Detroit is 25th in yards per pass. Before you say that to me, I'm trying to learn from the guys like Nick Giffen, who have told me that reverse correlation is a good way to look, or a good, place to get value in same game parlays. And I have a feeling, because I read him, that he might be on the game under. So I'm trying to play a little Cowboys over for a game under, possibly if he goes that way, reverse correlation.
And they cruise to this over in their 3-game homestand. Seattle, Thanksgiving against Washington, the Eagles game that was in prime time. They have been a very good offense, a very different team, the Dallas Cowboys, when they are at home this season. Bet number 2, Tim.
Well, here's another one. I learned from B-Matt, who's usually on this show, and his guy is Jake Ferguson. So Jake Ferguson over 4.5 receptions. Again, not just because in 4 straight weeks he has 8 targets, 4+ receptions in 4 straight weeks. Though the Lions are pretty good against the tight end, they still allow over 7 passes per game to the position. B-Matt's not here. I had a feeling if he would be, he'd be on this Jake Ferguson. So I'm a little anxious that I'm trying, I'm the apprentice here. And sometimes when you tell your master, hey, I think I got it, I think I learned, they tell you, hey, kid, you still have to learn how to use the force. So I'm hoping that these guys will tell me if I'm in the right direction, or they'll certainly tell me if I'm in the wrong direction here. But Jake Ferguson and all of our guy B-Matt over 4.5 receptions.
We got a little Tim Skywalker on the show today, and Mr. Tim Kalinowski. All right, so we've got the Cowboys team total over from Tim, over 28.5. That's come down slightly, and that reflects the line as well. Dallas opened -6. Now they're -4.5. And speaking of 4.5, we've got Jake Ferguson over 4.5 receptions. Nick and Doug, let's go to the council vote. Let's do it. All right, prop bet guy, Nick, what'd you guys come up with? That is a lot of writing. Nick, why don't you read off your detailed flashcard? You would be really good if you were studying for a test and you had to come up with a cheat sheet on one note card. You would be the guy I would turn to. So what does that all say?
Yeah, so Tim gave his 2 picks, and I love to bust his chops. He knows that. So I said neither as my vote. And then Tim said, fine. How about CD Lamb touchdown? I said, even worse. He said, it's okay. I hate both my picks anyway. So just remember that Tim hates both his picks. I said, no, actually, I don't mind the reverse correlation here. So Tim is right. He's able to read my mind. He knows reverse correlation. He's playing to the math guy. I love it. I love some reverse correlation in this game. You know, all it would take is a Dallas blowout to hit the over on their team total, and they've been blowing out teams at home.
Okay. You know, you could just screenshot the text next time and then put your phone up.
Yeah, but then I have to print it off and tape it to this, and I could just, Yeah.
Very excellent penmanship on your part too, I must say.
This is chicken scratch. Let's be real.
Yeah. We all do that though when we are in a time crunch. Prop bet guy, you're on Dallas team total over as well. Why?
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't know that we were writing novels down, so I just literally wrote Cowboys TT team total. I think Tim makes great points. Yeah, I mean, could this be considered a square play? Maybe, but the Cowboys are really good at home. They score a lot when they're inside. After two tough games on the road, they're coming home now. They're facing a defense that has struggled against the pass. Mike McCarthy does not need an excuse to pass the ball. I think they're going to be slinging it around. I think CD is going to be a very tough cover for the Lions secondary, and he usually is the driving force behind all of the yards and all of the points. So I like the Cowboys.
They have hit this in every game, every home game they've had. The Jets going back to week 2, they scored 30 right on the dot. And like we talked about, that 3-game homestand, Washington, Seattle, and Philadelphia, 45, 41, 33. I would add too, this is maybe more of an angle on the point spread. The Cowboys are, part of me, the Lions just clinched a playoff spot. So this is kind of a letdown spot, I feel like, for the Lions too. And it's just a chance for Dallas off consecutive losses, as the prop bet guy said. This is a spot for Dallas. I would prefer, though, to play the team total as opposed to laying the 4.5, just because I want to give the Lions a little bit of street cred for how they might be able to compete in this game. Nick Giffen, you're up next, batting second on Action Island. Give us pick number 1.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the well that was dry last night, and I'm going to take the game under 52.5. Now,
Okay.
Of course, if you're watching Action Island last night, I took the under 34.5, and that got beat before the 2-minute warning of the first half. But hey, we're still betting on these luck rankings unders that have been hitting at a 60% rate over the last 6 years in a more than 200 game sample size. So some of them are going to lose, but about 60% of them are going to win. And I think this is one that can win. This game has a luck total of -6.6. Luck totals below -5 are 27, 17, and 1, including last night's game, which is 61% to the under this year. And like I said, 60% to the under over the last 6 years. 95% of the money, according to our pro report, our Action Network pro report, is on the over. So we're fading the public here. Now, the public's had a great year, but in general, fading these inflated lines does tend to be a profitable spot. We're also in that sweet spot for the luck unders. I mentioned the luck totals -6.6. If it's between -5 and -7, it's actually 64% to the under if the game is played after week 9. So pretty strong signal here. Also, both these teams get defensive matchups that are much harder than the average defense they've faced this year. Detroit has had the 7th easiest opposing defensive schedule by DVOA, but Dallas is the 6th ranked defensive DVOA team. So that's an 8.1% increase in difficulty by DVOA for Detroit facing Dallas than the average team they faced. And on the flip side, Dallas, they've faced the easiest schedule in terms of opposing defenses by DVOA. Detroit ranks 14th, so certainly not great, but still better than the average that Dallas has faced. And that's a 5.6% increase in difficulty by DVOA. Now, if we look at their expected scores this year, Detroit has been involved in games that have had an expected score of 48 total points on average, and Dallas 45.5 points expected in their games on average. And the league average is 43. So these, both of them have been involved in games that are higher scoring than average, but using those numbers and some fancy math, I get this total around 50.5. Maybe leaning just a bit over on that. So definitely like under 52.5.
So of course, someone might be watching and think, well, we all voted on the team total over for Dallas. are in that analysis, could you also make a case? All right, Dallas can get theirs. They can get to 29 or 30.
Yep.
We're really fading the Lions here if we want all legs to hit, right?
Exactly. We want Dallas to score, and we want Detroit to just not quite hold up their end of the bargain here, which would essentially be a Dallas cover, which is where I lean as well. And certainly that's doable. You know, Tim mentioned the reverse correlation in his part of it. If you just play these two together, we get something like 5.5 to 1. Do we think Dallas can blow out Detroit, you know, 1 in every 6 times or so? Yeah, I think so. I think that's certainly possible given their home splits this year.
Okay, very good. And I may have said Dallas twice. I meant Detroit, two teams with the D. So apologies for that. Okay, what's your second one, Nick Giffen?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. It's I feel like this is like in the Raybon or Kerner mold when they're going on Convince Me. I'm going to go Khalif Raymond under 14.5 receiving yards. If we look at Raymond's man and zone splits, they're night and day. They're Jekyll and Hyde. He has 2.54 yards per route run versus zone, but versus man coverage, he's just at 1.45. So more than a full yard worse versus man coverage. And that's important because Dallas plays the 4th most man coverage in the league. Also, he's targeted on 22.8% of his zone routes, but just 12.2% of his man routes. So a 10% drop off in target rate against man coverage. In the 2 games that Khalif Raymond has played this year against teams that play man coverage at a top 8 rate, which is of course 32 teams, so top quarter in the league in terms of man coverage rate, he has just 20 receiving yards total. Now, that came in game 1 of the year, 20 yards versus Kansas City on 1 target. But remember, there's no Jamison Williams back in week 1. He was suspended. So the second game was 0 targets against New Orleans in week 13. So obviously 0 yards on 0 targets. So he's averaged half a target for 10 yards in the 2 games against teams that play man coverage at a top quarter rate in the NFL. Also, he has a 78% catch rate this year, which is a career high, but that's due for regression. At his average depth of target of around 8.5 yards, he should be catching just under 70% of his passes, like 68%. So like a 10% drop off is expected in his catch rate. And Dallas is number 1 in defensive DVOA versus shorter passes. So at that 8.5 ADOT, Dallas really should be able to force that regression that we've been talking about. So, he could clear this on 1 catch with an average, catch of 14.5 or so yards. This is right where it is, but we're projecting because of the difficult matchup, 12.8 yards per reception, which means he probably needs 2 catches to clear this. And we're projecting him for under 2 catches.
All right. We're a fan of Khalif Raymond. If indeed it means, I don't know if he's an impact player in special teams, that's not a problem. The former Holy Cross Crusader, he was darn good at Holy Cross.
Glash. I was about to, on the other side of this, I was about to give you $100 if you could tell me where he went to school, but you got it already.
Dude, I did his games. That was my first job out of school. Khalif Raymond on the Holy Cross Crusaders. He was a weapon. And then he went to Denver. I think he was undrafted, and he really carved out a role in the league for his special teams. And now he's turned into a pretty impactful receiver for a contending football team in the NFL. All right, Council, we have to go to a vote. The game under or Khalif Raymond under 14.5 yards? Let's vote. All right, what did we come up with? Let's go. Tim and I are on the under. Prop bet guy, you like the former Crusader to go under his receiving yards. Why do you decide to go that route?
Yeah, so I'm not anti, reverse correlation here, or whatever we're calling it. I'm just not a sides guy personally. Nick sold me with Raymond, the man zone splits. Those are stark. And like Nick said, Dallas runs man at the 4th highest rate. Jamison Williams, he is now a thing. We are getting him for better or for worse. He is now the number 2 receiver by far in terms of snap count, targets, and receptions over the last 2 weeks for the Lions behind Amon-Ra St.Brown. Josh Reynolds still exists. Both of those guys definitely more deep threats than Raymond. And as Nick said, Dallas excellent against those short passes. I don't think he's a good match for their bump and run coverage. So I don't really think he's going to see the field too much as the Lions kind of shorten up their rotation. So I like the under, but obviously I was outvoted.
Okay. Tim, anything to echo from Nick on the game under?
Yeah, I mean,
Which I'm actually very curious about your opinion on this because you like the team total over. That was the pick that we all voted on.
yeah, I'm trying to learn on this whole reverse correlation thing. You know, I read our experts, I watch our experts. You know, the best way to, you know, get an understanding is, you know, watch and learn from your own company. And a guy like Nick Giffen has been banging his fist about getting value in reverse correlation with these same game parlays. I feel like a lot of times I put them together and I'm like, oh, really? All of that for 5-1? Really? I kind of want a bigger payday. So I think that's where you can kind of find it and looking at how could this happen, but that also still happen. I think we're going to be excited about the potential payout here when we finish this up with going with the reverse correlation route. And look, I'm all in on Raymond too. When I look at this and Nick gives his two arguments, I sit here scratching my head like, why can't we just go with his two? Why am I even here? So, you know, it is what it is. So it's hard. I had to pick one.
You said it, not us. There you go. Prop bet guy, you're next. You're the final, but you're the third hitter for us today. What do you got for your first one?
All right, batting third. So yeah, my first option here, I'm going with Sam Laporta over 4.5 receptions. So the Lions tight end, he's over in 8 of 15 games, including 5 of 8 that are played in a dome. I know a lot has gone into, you know, Jared Goff's home and road splits. This is a road game, but he's an inside cat. He's a Cali guy. He likes playing inside or in the, you know, the controlled climate. So I do think this suits him and his offense a little bit better. And then overall, the matchup's great for Laporta, especially compared to the other pass catchers. The Cowboys, they rank 26th in DVOA versus tight ends. Not only is that not good, obviously the bottom echelon of the league, but they're top 10 versus all other categories of wide receivers and running backs. So Amon-Ra, look, he's going to get his. He leads this team in every major receiving category, and that doesn't change when you look at man versus zone splits. But Laporta does see his target share increase when facing man coverage. And like Nick said, Cowboys do run man at the 4th highest rate. And Goff, you know, in terms of when you think of checkdowns, so usually that's either tight end or running backs. Goff only targets his running backs, including the obviously electric Jahmyr Gibbs, at a 13% rate versus man, and that jumps up to 20% versus zone. So if we're going to be seeing more man here, give me Laporta, whose 32% target rate versus man is the highest on the Lions amongst their main pass catchers. You know, Jameson Williams, he will get his deep shots. Josh Reynolds will get his deep shots. Khalif Raymond, I don't think will get anything, like we said. So I like Laporta, you know, a bit of a bounce back spot for him after a quiet last game for him.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and that was a kind of an odd game against the Vikings too, because while the Lions did trail at one point, they still just found a way to really control that game, despite the fact Minnesota hanging in there. So in a ball control kind of game, you don't have to throw as much. What's your second one?
Yeah, so a bit of a weird one here. Because of all the great skill position players, you might be thinking, you know, I'm going, on the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard. But no, I'm staying with Dak Prescott, but I'm staying on the ground and going over 16.5 rush yards. So his hit rate on this, actually less than 50%. He's only over in 7 to 15 games. However, he's been running more lately, 19 attempts in his last 4 games. Plus, he is over in 4 or 5 games decided by 2 scores or less. Now, I know we kind of just made the argument that maybe the Cowboys run away with this one. No pun intended. I personally think the Lions will keep it a little bit closer, at least within 2 scores. And look, it's it's an island game. Got to keep it on brand here. Right. National TV, you know, there will be eyes on this game. And I do think Dak is, you know, susceptible to take off a little bit more. Digging into the matchup, the Lions are actually allowing the most QB rush attempts per game. Now, let's caveat that because they have faced Justin Fields twice, Lamar Jackson once, and they got a big dose of Taysom Hill when they faced the Saints. So the numbers there are a little bit skewed. So we'll pull back on, you know, seeing them at the top of the list. However, they have shown that they are susceptible to the RPOs. The Cowboys, they ruled out Rico Dowdle, so they'll be without him. And McCarthy has been reluctant to giving Tony Pollard a huge workload. Now, I'm not saying Dak is going to come in and get 6-7 RPOs called just specifically for him. But I do think we can see some, maybe 1 or 2 design rushes come his way outside of the QB sneaks. We've seen it this season. I believe he's had 6 or 7 of those, called for him. And we saw it against the Chargers in an island game when he almost ran for a touchdown. I think he had a 20-yard run. He's an excellent scrambler, averaging 7 yards per scramble this season per PFF. Lions pressured quarterback at the 3rd highest rate in the league. I think he's going to be on the move a lot. And yes, he's great at throwing out of the scramble, but I do see him, escaping the pocket, getting outside, breaking off 4 or 5 runs in this one, outside of any kneel downs or sneaks. So I personally think that he's going to kind of approach 25 yards in this one. So to get this line at over 16.5 is probably one of my favorite plays of the game.
Yeah, it's right where you landed last week against Miami, 25 yards, trailing game script though. Buffalo 27. Nick, Tim, let's take it to a vote. All right, redeem yourselves. Oh, I'm on an island. Sam Laporta. Look, I'll keep this short and sweet. I liked the arguments for both. But I would say, based on the line, I would rather go in the direction of the Lions being in a trailing game script than Dak Prescott playing from ahead in this game, which I think is going to happen. If Dak were to get there, which he has done the last 2 games, in games they've trailed, the one game you could look at and say, well, he could also get there and Dallas could be in a shootout. That was the Seattle game a few Thursdays ago. I would prefer to go that direction on Sam Laporta to bounce back. And I thought the DVOA note was very good, as well as the higher target share when playing against man coverage. I would just, based on the game script and what I think is going to happen, Dak won't be asked. I will add the one concern I have, and you mentioned Mike McCarthy, prop bet guy. They do not trust their run game, period. Pollard is really a high-end 2. They clearly miss Zeke Elliott, I think. They would be very happy to have that guy. So yes, maybe some design runs could be the stab here for me. But I just tend to like Laporta more. Nick Giffen, you have anything to add as to why you like Dak's over rushing?
You said you like Laporta more. I think I like Laporta more than you. He's actually my favorite NFL player right now.
Why are you going Dak then?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Okay, all right.
But no, I love Laporta. I took his over on the very first Action Island of the year. I took his over, and he hit. And I said, he's my favorite NFL player after that. So, but the reason I'm taking Dak is simply the odds. I've got both of these in terms of projections right around similar value. So when I'm going to take similar value, I'm just going to take the one that has lower juice, which is Dak at, I think, like -114, and Laporta's at -130. So I'll just take Dak.
Okay. Tim, anything to add?
Oh, I love a quarterback rushing over. Oh, do I love it. Yeah, I was so happy to see this in there. Dak is my fantasy quarterback in every league, and so I watch him pretty closely. And in my head, I feel like he scrambles way more than prop pick I said with the less than 50% number in getting to the 16.5. But I think he's been running a little bit more. And also, too, prop bet guy mentioning that Laporta might be an indoor cat. Call him an Iowa tight end, an indoor cat. Maybe his quarterback is an indoor cat.
That's what I said. I said Goff's an indoor cat. Let's pull it back. I know where Laporta came from.
Yeah, listen, I maybe it's me. I just looked for the one thing to jump down your throat and didn't listen to the entirety of the argument. I hand up. I do that sometimes. So yeah, fair enough.
I respect it.
Yeah.
Can I jump in here one more thing?
Yeah, please.
One thing I noticed while I was searching Laporta's stuff, he has 7 of his 9 touchdowns this year in the first half, and all but one of his touchdowns have come when Detroit has been tied or leading. His first half anytime touchdown is +400. His second half is only +290. So if you want to take a Laporta touchdown, take a first half touchdown.
Interesting. So that analysis would indicate that he could even get there early in the game when Detroit's not trailing, and they might be more willing to take deep shots with Amon-Ra over the middle or go to Williams over the top. Interesting. Okay. All righty. Well, I lose. So Dak's the play. Here is the final council recap from the 3 guys. Leg 1, Tim Kalinowski's team total over on Dallas, over 28.5. Leg 2, Nick Giffen's under on the game, 52.5. And prop bet guy, Nick and Tim won out on this one. Dak Prescott over 16.5 rushing yards. I'll throw in a bonus play to up this payout a little better, juice it up a bit. How about Amon-Ra St.Brown, anytime touchdown? That price has come down to plus 125. I will admit we did the Best Bets podcast on the Action Network podcast just a few days ago. Joe Gallant, who is a friend of the program, friend of Action Island, he's a very competent participant, as Tim said. I would admit, too, that these guys are a lot sharper than I am, and I like Jill's play on this. I would also add, we're not quite there yet, but keep in mind incentives. It's incentive season starting next week. And while I do believe, I think you would all agree, Amon-Ra St.Brown is probably the second best receiver in this game. CeeDee Lamb number 1. Amon-Ra St.Brown, 5th in the league in yards, trailing CeeDee Lamb by about 140 coming into this game. And he's tied for 3rd in receptions. They're going to try, and he's got 8 touchdowns on the year. Amon-Ra St.Brown, also to all the points about Laporta and the line, trailing game script. Laporta's going to, St. Brown's going to get peppered with targets in this game. I like the plus money too, plus 125. Amon-Ra St. Brown to score a touchdown. That ups the payout to plus 3871 with the bonus bet. Anyone have thoughts on Amon-Ra?
No, Clash, you're sharp as a tack, man. What am I going to say? You know, you copy other people's homework. They can get you pretty far.
I didn't copy last week, but I did copy this week. You know, it's
no
like vacation
That's
homework.
me.
You know,
that's what I did my whole life.
I will say the bonus bet Josh Allen under rushing last week, that did deliver for us. If you played that straight.
Look at you.
Anybody else? Prop bet guy, you were nodding your head. You like the Amon-Ra odds plus 125.
Yeah, I'm not a touchdown guy personally, but
Okay.
I mean, getting one of the best receivers in the game at plus money when they're probably going to be in a trailing game script for most, if not the entirety of this game. Yeah, what's not to like? It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's really good. That's my analysis.
Alrighty.
We get a little more of that anti-correlation as well that boosts the odds, right? Any touchdown that goes with an under will be more inflated than a touchdown that goes with an over. So don't mind it. We have ARSB projected for around 7 receptions, so maybe one of those will be a touchdown.
All right. Very good. Good stuff from Nick Giffen, prop bet guy, Tim Kalinowski. I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen. Thank you for joining Action Island. Hope you're all ready to go now for Detroit and Dallas Saturday night, 8 o'clock. It's the Monday Night Football version of this game. So it's on Saturday night. Keep that in mind when you get your plays in. Thanks for joining Action Island. We're presented by our friends at FanDuel. And of course, if you did so already, comment below your thoughts on the game and we'll take a gander at those. Thanks everybody for watching. Happy New Year. Our next Action Island will be in the new year. So you all have a safe and happy New Year and best of luck tomorrow night for Dallas, Detroit. We'll see you next time.